Great job. Great job. We'll have to use you again. You know. Yeah. Wake up. Wake up. You know, it's a new day. Night's over. The sun's up. Let's get moving. Wake up. Things have changed. Let's get doing stuff new. There have been 3 times in American church history where there's been a wake-up period. They're called the Great Awakening, the First Great Awakening, the Second Great Awakening, and the Third Great Awakening. The First Great Awakening happened in the mid-1700s. It was a transition from the European models of churches. The institutional church was moving toward a more democratic way of going about church, a new way of believing, and that fits in very well with the American Revolution. In the 1800s, 1800 to 1820, there was another Great Awakening. The Second Great Awakening was when we moved from Calvinism of a God, of a kind of a stern God who's out there, a predestined life where things don't change, to a notion of free will, to a notion of that lives can be improved, that lives can transform. This was a period of populism in American history. The Third Great Awakening was like 1890 to 1910. It's the period of the social gospel, when the church got very involved in work in tenements and with the poor. And it was also the period of Pentecostalism, the great movement of the Holy Spirit. In every Great Awakening, there's a belief that just before the Great Awakening, there's a belief that religion is over, it's done, Christianity has had its day, and then people wake up. Night is over, religion, Christianity will be expressed in a new way. How we've done it is not going to be how it will be. There is a belief that we are on the cusp of the Fourth Great Awakening. There are signs that the church has gone downhill, that religion has had its day, but the belief is that there's a new day coming, that the sun is coming up, and how we do church will be different, and how we go about our faith will be different than how it's been done. When these great awakenings happen, as I said, they're preceded by spiritual discontent. And that the spiritual discontent, the questions that people have, can be put into 3 buckets. The first bucket of questions is, what do I believe now? What do I believe? Do I still believe in the bodily resurrection? Do I believe in the virgin birth? Do I believe that Jesus is the only way to heaven? What do I believe? The belief question. Another bucket of questions is, how do I act? This is the behavior question. How often should I go to church? Every Sunday, yeah. How often, just checking here, how often should I go to church? How should I pray? How should we take communion? How should we baptize? How often do we forgive? Should we forgive? Should we help the poor? And so on. It's the behavior question. How should we act? Then the last bucket of questions is, who am I? Who am I? And that's the belonging question. Now, just for example, it'll sound like I'm picking on the Catholics, but I kind of am, because I just don't want to pick on the Methodists. The belief question. I'm not sure I believe everything the Pope says anymore. So I'm not going to do everything the Pope says. And then, if I'm not believing and I'm not acting, then why am I Catholic? You know, why do I belong to the Catholic Church? You can just flip that and say, well, I belong to the Catholic Church, therefore I act in certain ways, and therefore I believe in certain things. So there's the questions of belonging, belief, and behaving are intertwined. It's religious ideas, religious commitment, and religious affiliation. And as part of our sermon series on the Great Awakening, the Fourth Great Awakening, Colleen and I will be preaching 2 sermons on belonging, 2 on behaving, and 2 on believing, and then wrap it up with what we think the Fourth Great Awakening, the new day of the church, will be like. I'm going to start with belonging. Who am I? Who am I is often a belonging question. We find our identity through what we belong to. You know, think of yourself at a meeting, at a workshop. You're sitting at your small table, and there's, those icebreaker questions. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Well, most of us do not say something like, well, my name's John and I'm really charming, and I'm really good looking, and I have a problem with my temper, and we don't say who I am that way. We usually say who we are by our affiliations, by that to which we belong. My name is John. I'm married to Susan. We have 3 children. I work at King Avenue Church. I'm from Columbus. Those are all affiliation questions. You know who I am by my relationships, that to which I belong. Belonging used to be kind of clear-cut. But the lines have gotten blurred. I'm a Methodist. I'm a Catholic. I'm a Presbyterian. And now we have marriages of Methodists and Jews. What are the children? We have marriages of Catholics and Hindus. I guess I'm a Hindu Catholic. It's the belonging thing is a little confusing, and issues of sexual identity, gender expression. This binary world doesn't exist anymore, and the issues of belonging are a little more difficult. It's harder to label people, which is not a bad thing. Belonging is important. Think about the Ancestry.com commercials. That's about belonging. Who am I? Well, I belong with the Greeks. I belong with the Irish. I belong with the German Irish, and so on. Religion itself means, the lig in religion is like ligament. It means to connect, to bind. Religion means connection. What are we connected to? To what do we belong? So religion literally means to reconnect, to re-belong. Belonging is an important question in our country now? Who belongs in our country? Yeah. Who belongs in our churches? Yeah. Belonging is incredibly important, I think, because of the rise in loneliness. People do not feel connected to anyone anymore, and loneliness has become a disease. Belonging is important as we see the rise in suicides. Don't feel connected. Our sign is about belonging, isn't it? Our sign says, all are welcome. Basically, all belong. It doesn't say, we believe this. It doesn't say, we act this way. It says, all belong. All are welcome. That's the message here. Got an email this week. It's not an uncommon email to receive here. It was from the cousin of a high school friend. And this person said, I am the cousin of so-and-so. Maybe you remember her. Well, yeah, I used to date her. And he said, I have just come out. I've been in the closet all of my life. And my cousin said, I could come to your church and feel accepted. Could you please let me know if that is true? That's a belonging question. Will I belong at King Avenue? Will I find connection in the loneliness I feel having just come out? Who am I? To what do I belong? Religion is about belonging. It's the identity question. Now, who am I? I want to approach by changing the question to, where am I? For I think, who am I is kind of a static question. We think, this is who I am, this is who I'll always be. And I think, where am I, as a way of answering who am I, is more fluid. Because we're moving. We're journeying through life. Where we are is not where we were, and it's not where we will be. I got several years ago, I got an email from someone who said, the email said, Are you the same John Keeny who graduated from Fairview High School in 1995? And I said, and I wrote back and I said, yes, I am. Yes, I am John Keeny who graduated from Fairview High School in 1995. But I hope I'm not the same person. I hope I'm not the same person. I'd like to think as I've gone through life that I've become less arrogant, less judgmental, more loving, more forgiving, more accepting. Where we are in our life journey makes a difference in who we are. I'm going to use Susan as an example, and I've cleared this with her. I met her freshman roommate several years ago, And Susan and her roommate were talking about, the first day in the dorm room. And her roommate said, "Susan, I'll never forget meeting your mother." Susan moved from Buffalo. And she said, "Your mother said to me, all I want for Susan is that she marry a good Ukrainian Catholic." Well, that sure didn't come true. And I got to thinking, had Susan stayed in Buffalo and stayed with her parents and gone to that Ukrainian Catholic church, the odds would have been much better for her to marry a good Ukrainian Catholic boy. But that she left home and went to a university that had students from every state and every country exposed her to a much bigger world. And as she moved through life, who she was changed by where she was and changed by her relationships. Who we are is not who we were, and it's not who we will be, because we are in different places. We read the Bible sometimes as if it's, a law book and a rule book. The Bible can also be read as a travel log. It starts in Genesis, in the Garden of Eden, where God says to Adam and Eve, "Where are you?" It's not "who are you," it's "where are you?" It's kind of, where are you in your faith journey? And you just go through the Bible. Abraham and Sarah leave their hometown and travel to Canaan and to Egypt. And those experiences that they have with God, walking with God, make a difference in who they are. The Hebrew slaves travel from slavery to freedom. Where they are makes a difference in who they are. The Exodus, when they're taken into captivity, into Babylon, their great concern is where we are in Babylon will change who we are. Jesus, the Gospels begin with Mary and Joseph traveling from Nazareth to Bethlehem. And then after Jesus is born, is traveling to Egypt. Jesus is traveling all over Galilee and Israel. The disciples follow him and learn where they are, determines who they are. The reading of Bartimaeus, who he is not who he was and not who he will be. It begins with him sitting, and it ends with him getting up and moving and following Jesus on the way. And because of that relationship with Jesus, he is a different person who's growing in his faith. I see our faith journey is like those maps at the mall. The maps at Easton, where you go to the map and it says, "You are here. You are here." Not where I was, and it's not where I'm going to be. I think this notion of faith moving, this walk with me, and the song talks about how Peter's different, how Moses is different, how Mary Magdalene is different. I think this is really important for us to understand in our faith as we approach the fourth awakening. I think it's so important for college students to realize that their faith is changing and evolving. Students come here from their home church, and they have that Hindu roommate, and they have that Muslim roommate, and they start to ask these questions, and they start to think, maybe Christianity is over for me, maybe my faith is dead. And maybe what they ought to realize is no, their faith is changing. It's growing, it's maturing, it's deepening. Yeah. There's a great awakening where it will be different. I've talked with people my age who think they're losing their faith because they no longer see things in this black and white way, this true or false way. And they don't experience God as rules anymore. And they think their faith is over and it's dead. And I think, no, it's awakening. It's no longer going to be black and white. It's going to be communion and walking with God and growing with God. The phrase that Richard Rohr uses is falling upward. It's falling, it's going down. But I'm going upward in a better relationship with God. In this journey of faith, of where am I now in my faith journey, maybe the only constant is God. And that's what's so neat about the Exodus reading that Deborah read. You're asking us to leave Egypt, God. You're asking us to journey to Canaan. Who do I say sends me? Who do I tell the people is sending us on this journey? And God's response is, I am. I am. What's your name? I am. And I think that's the constant in our journey. That wherever we are, I am is with us. Was God with me before I went to college? Yeah, I am was with me. In college, when I went through a great loss of faith, yeah, I am was the constant. Has God been with me now? I am. God is the constant. God's life, God's being, and my journey and our journey is interwoven. And this journey leads us to a new awakening in our faith. Now, when I say God walks with us, God is that constant, it leads us to think, then maybe I belong to God. Who am I? I'm God's. The next question in belonging is, whose am I? And that's next week. Amen.